Then we come to the second rule, or the dot convention 2, and this is related to the contribution to the core in the flex from the currents in each of the different windings. Okay? So the rule states that the currents into the dot, or currents entering the dot in various windings, produce flex that add to each other in the core. So if all the windings have currents entering the dot, then their flexes add in the core or in any part of the core. Okay? So using that, so if this is the dot configuration for a given transformer, and if I1, the current in the winding 1, is entering the dot, and if I2, the current in the secondary winding, is also entering the dot, then the flex, the individual flex due to each of these currents, add in the core to result in phi C, which is the core flex, equal to phi 1 plus phi 2, the two individual flexes. The flex themselves, the magnitude is given by the flex is MMF divided by the reluctance of the core. MMF for the first winding is number of turns times the primary current, will be N1 I1, and the reluctance is the same for both the windings, for all the windings. Okay. Phi 2 will be its own secondary MMF, which is N2 times I2 over the same reluctance. Okay. The key point is these two flexes add in any part of the core, okay, as long as the two currents are entering the dot. Okay. Now, a different case would be this dot configuration. On the primary side, I have current entering the dot, and on the secondary side, I have current actually leaving the dot here. Okay? Or the current is entering the undotted end, therefore it is leaving the dotted end. Okay? So in this case, the phi 1 and phi 2 individually are still given by the same equation, okay? MMF over the reluctance. Whereas if you look at any part of the core, any leg of the core, then the net flex due to these two flex components is the difference between the two. Phi C is phi 1 minus phi 2. A related discussion is again for this configuration, this dot configuration. I have I1 entering the dot in the primary winding, whereas on the secondary side I have I2 actually leaving the dot as shown here. Okay. So this will be the case in most of the power transformers that you study, for example in forward converter, full bridge converter, and so on. Okay. So here this will be more like the load current. So we know that when we looked at the basic principles of transformers, when there is a load current that leaves the dot here, then there will be a corresponding load current component drawn on the primary side, which will enter the dot. Okay. And the contribution, the flex contribution due to these two currents will cancel each other, leaving only the flex due to the magnetizing current present in the core. Okay. So once again, in this case, phi C is phi 1 minus phi 2, because in one winding the current is entering the dot, and in the other winding the current is leaving the dot. Okay, so let's use the principle that we just learned to solve this example problem. Okay. So given this transformer core structure and the two coils with their given winding directions, and also given that the dot for the primary winding has been placed at the top, the question is where should be the dot for the secondary winding. Okay. So I would like to urge you to pause at this point and try to solve this example yourself. Okay, so if you are to solve this problem, then one method would be to try to assign a current entering the dot here, call that as I1, and find out the corresponding flex due to this current entering the dot. Okay. So you can use a right hand rule, and you can see that the flex here is really going up. Okay. The fingers will be curling along the current direction, that will be from let's see, this is from left to right, right? So the current is here like this, the current is here like this, and therefore the thumb will be pointing upwards. Okay, so this flex forms a continuous path like this, and in this part of the core it flows down and then completes a path like this. Okay, so that's the flex direction. It is clockwise around the core. Okay. Now let's see what is the flux direction due to a current in the secondary winding. So let's arbitrarily try a current entering the winding at the top. Okay. So what will be the flux direction due to this current I2? So once again, if you use the right hand rule, so here the current direction is right to left, here right to left, right to left, and so on. Okay. So if you curl the fingers in the direction of the current, you'll see that the thumb is really pointing downwards here. Okay, so that will be the flux direction phi 2, whereas this flux is really phi 1 due to the current in the primary winding. Okay. So clearly we can see that in this part of the core, and actually you can see any part of the core, the flux directions for phi 2 would be like this here, like this here, and this direction at the top end. Okay. So you can see that everywhere along the core, the two fluxes are adding, okay, which means if the current is entering the dot here, the current should have been entering the dot in the secondary winding as well, and that is why the fluxes are adding. Okay. Therefore, I would place the dot at the top for the secondary winding as well. So that is the answer. So to summarize, we learned two rules. The first rule is that the voltage polarity of the dotted end with respect to the undotted end is the same in all the windings. And the second one is if current enters a dot in any winding, the corresponding flux due to these currents add to each other in any part of the core. Okay. I also wanted to talk about two additional points. The first one is that when you have transformers with multiple core legs with multiple windings, okay, then it's not enough to have just one dot for each winding. We need one dot for each pair of winding. Let's say if we have say just three windings, then for the first two you have one dot pair, for the second and third you have another one, and there's one for the 1 and 3, and so on. Okay. This kind of more complex situations arise in this integrated magnetics based power converters. Okay. The second point is that if we have a wound transformer where it is not possible to determine the winding directions of every single coil, it is still easy to determine the dot polarity. All you have to do is apply a small AC voltage to any one of the windings and look at the waveforms of the voltages in all the other windings with respect to the applied voltage. And just by looking at the phase relationship, we can easily determine the dot polarity using the rules that we just learned in this video.